The large spaceship drifted silently through the vast emptiness of space. Lucas, a skilled human pilot, stood by the window of his small quarters, gazing out at the stars. His mission had taken him far from Earth, into the unknown reaches of the galaxy. As a veteran pilot, he had grown used to the quiet and isolation of space travel. His room was simple, equipped only with the essentials: a bed, a desk, and a small window to look out into the endless night. It had been a long day, filled with routine checks and repairs. Lucas was finally ready to relax and enjoy a few moments of peace. He pulled off his boots and sat down on the bed, letting out a tired sigh. It felt good to be alone for once, without the noise of the crew or the stress of their assignments. The quiet hum of the ship's engines was a soothing background to his thoughts. Suddenly, there was a loud bang at the door. Lucas jumped up, heart racing. Who could it be? There was no scheduled maintenance or visits planned for the night. He walked cautiously to the door and pressed his ear against it, listening intently. A soft, muffled voice came through, followed by more loud bangs. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice slightly annoyed. The last thing he needed was someone interrupting his rare moment of peace. The door slid open without warning. Standing in the doorway was a woman. No, not just any woman. She was tall, with a graceful, almost ethereal presence. Her skin shimmered with a faint silvery glow, and her features were unlike any human he had ever seen. She had large, almond-shaped eyes, the color of the deepest purple, and her hair cascaded down her back like flowing silver threads. She wore a sleek suit made of a material that looked both foreign and advanced, fitting her perfectly. Her presence caught Lucas off guard. He stood frozen, staring at her, unsure of what to do. The woman looked equally surprised, her eyes widening, as she realized she had made a mistake. "Oh no," she murmured softly in a language Lucas didn't understand. She quickly looked around the room, as if searching for an escape route. Can I help you?" Lucas finally managed to ask, still processing what he was seeing. He took a cautious step back, trying to make sense of the situation. The woman blinked, her confusion apparent. She looked at him, then back to the door, as if weighing her options. I'm lost," she said, her voice soft but with a hint of urgency. "I thought this was the medical bay." Lucas's mind raced. Lost? In the middle of a massive ship? How could someone get lost? "Well, this isn't the medical bay," he said, still trying to shake off his surprise. "This is my room." The woman's cheeks flushed, and she took a step back. "I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you." "No harm done," Lucas replied, trying to hide his curiosity. "But maybe you should try the next door down." She nodded, though she didn't immediately turn to leave. There was something about her, a strange sense of calmness in the midst of what seemed to be a mistake. "Are you part of the crew?" Lucas asked, his voice a little less harsh now. He couldn't help but be intrigued by her. There was something about her that felt different, otherworldly, even. The woman hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, and I'm here on a mission, but I seem to have gotten turned around." Lucas watched her closely. She didn't seem like a normal crew member. Her appearance, her mannerisms, it was clear she was from somewhere far beyond Earth. But who was she? And what was she doing here? "Look, it's no big deal," Lucas said after a pause. "You just got confused, right? Happens to the best of us." "Thank you," she said, finally breaking her gaze from the room and looking down the hallway. "I'll be going now." But instead of turning to leave, she just stood there for a moment, still unsure. Lucas took a deep breath and decided to break the silence. "You're not from around here, are you?" She glanced back at him, her eyes studying him for a brief second. "No, I'm not." Lucas didn't press further. She didn't seem ready to share more about herself. The moment stretched between them, filled with an awkward tension. After what felt like an eternity, the woman took a step back and started to walk away. But before she turned the corner, she glanced back once more. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice carrying a strange mix of gratitude and something else, something Lucas couldn't quite place. As she disappeared into the hallway, Lucas stood there, staring after her, His heart was still racing from the shock of the encounter. He couldn't quite shake the feeling that this was no ordinary mistake. There was something about her, something familiar and yet alien, that made him wonder if he had just met someone far more important than he realized. With a sigh, Lucas closed the door and returned to his bed, his mind racing with questions he knew he would never get answers to. Not yet. He stared at the ceiling, unable to shake the image of the alien woman from his mind. He had no idea just how much his life was about to change. The next day, Lucas woke up to the sound of soft knocking at his door. He groggily opened his eyes, wondering if he had forgotten something important. It was still early, but the knock came again, louder this time. "Who's it?" Lucas called out, rubbing his eyes as he got out of bed. He wasn't expecting any visitors, especially not this early. The door slid open before he could even move to answer. Standing in the doorway, with a serious expression on her face, was the same alien woman from the night before. Lucas froze, momentarily stunned. "You again?" he asked, trying not to sound too surprised. He quickly glanced at the clock, realizing it was barely morning. What was she doing here? The woman, whose name was Kara, she had introduced herself last night. Though Lucas hadn't yet fully processed it, stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "I'm sorry to bother you again," she said, her voice calm and soft, "but I need a place to stay for a while." She glanced around the room, then back at him. "It's safer here." Lucas blinked, unsure if he heard her right. "Wait, what? You want to stay here?" He rubbed his eyes again, feeling the sleepiness cloud his thoughts. "This is my personal space." "I don't know you." Kara didn't seem bothered by his reaction. In fact, she stepped further into the room, moving with a graceful confidence. "I understand it's unusual. I didn't mean to cause any trouble last night, but I have nowhere else to go, and I've heard that this place is safe." Lucas crossed his arms, confused and a little annoyed. "Safe? This is just my room. I don't have anything special here." She met his gaze without hesitation, her purple eyes still full of that mysterious calm. "It's not you. It's the ship." She paused. "I'm not sure who on the crew I can trust yet, and with what's coming, I believe it's safest if I remain hidden for now." Lucas looked at her, still unsure of what she was talking about. His head was spinning from the suddenness of everything. "Hidden? What do you mean hidden?" Kara lowered her gaze, almost as if she was contemplating whether to explain. "I come from a place you've never heard of. My people. They once ruled over many parts of the galaxy, but things went wrong. Now, I'm one of the last of my kind. Some of my enemies are still out there, hunting for me." The weight of her words settled on Lucas like a heavy stone. He hadn't expected any of this alien politics. Hidden enemies? None of it made sense. But there was something in her eyes, something that made him feel like she wasn't lying. She was desperate and maybe a little afraid. "So you want to stay here in my room?" Lucas asked, still trying to wrap his head around the idea. Kara nodded. "Yes, for now. I'll be gone when it's safe." Lucas sighed, trying to process everything. The last thing he wanted was to get involved in something so complicated. But at the same time, there was a strange feeling inside him, a mix of curiosity and a sense of responsibility he couldn't ignore. "Look, I don't know what you're running from," he said, running a hand through his hair, "but I can't have a stranger living in my room." "It's not, I understand," Kara interrupted softly. "But please, I'm asking for your help. It'll only be for a short time." Lucas stared at her for a long moment. He was exhausted and didn't want any more complications in his life. But there was something about Kara that made it hard to say no. Maybe it was the sincerity in her voice, or maybe it was the way she didn't seem to expect anything from him except a little help. "Fine," he finally said, feeling a strange weight lift from his shoulders. "You can stay here, but this isn't permanent. Once things calm down, you need to find somewhere else to go, okay?" Kara smiled, her eyes lighting up with gratitude. "Thank you. I promise it won't be for long." Lucas watched her as she moved into the room, settling herself on the small couch by the window. She seemed oddly comfortable, as if she belonged there already, despite having just arrived. He couldn't help but notice how out of place she seemed in his tiny, cluttered quarters. With her elegant clothes and calm demeanor, as the days went by, Kara's presence in Lucas' room became a regular part of his routine. At first, he didn't know what to make of it. He would go about his daily tasks, running the ship and completing his assignments, while Kara remained mostly quiet in the background. She didn't cause any trouble, though she insisted on sharing a meal with him every evening. It was an awkward start, but slowly, they began to talk more. Kara wasn't just a woman from another world, she was fascinating. Her knowledge of the galaxy and her people's history was vast. Sometimes, she would tell him stories of distant stars and ancient civilizations. She spoke of a time when her people ruled an empire, vast and powerful, before everything crumbled due to betrayal and war. Despite her tragic past, there was a quiet strength in her. Lucas noticed that. She didn't complain, even though she was now alone, with no real home to return to. She seemed calm, almost at peace with her fate. But there was something else in her eyes, an unspoken sadness that Lucas couldn't ignore. As the days turned into weeks, Lucas found himself slowly warming up to her. He had no choice, really. She was there, and she wasn't leaving anytime soon. And while he never would have chosen to be in this situation, he couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, the strange, unexpected meeting was leading them somewhere important. Days turned into weeks, and Lucas began to adjust to the new rhythm of life with Kara in his quarters. At first, it had been a strange and uncomfortable arrangement, but as time passed, their interactions became more natural. Lucas never imagined that he'd share his small, cramped room with an alien woman, but there she was, day after day, sitting quietly by the window, gazing out at the stars. The first few nights were the hardest. Kara had been quiet, almost distant, like she didn't want to intrude. She would only speak when spoken to, often keeping to herself in the corner of the room. Lucas didn't know how to approach her. Was she going to stay for a few more days? A week? Would she ever leave? The uncertainty hung in the air, but the more he got to know her, the more he started to understand. One evening, after another long shift, Lucas returned to his quarters to find Kara sitting at the small desk, flipping through some kind of data pad. She didn't look up when he entered, so he cleared his throat to get her attention. "Hey, I'm back," he said, dropping his bag by the door. Kara looked up, her purple eyes meeting his with a calmness that always left him a little speechless. "Welcome back," she replied, her voice soft but warm. "What are you reading?" Lucas asked, trying to break the silence. It was always hard to know what to talk about with her. She seemed so different, so distant at times, but there was also something intriguing about her. She tilted her head slightly, then held up the datapad. "It's a record of my people's history, my home, my ancestors, everything that was lost." Lucas sat down on the bed, taking a deep breath. "I never really asked you about that. I mean, I know you mentioned that your people ruled over a lot of the galaxy, but I don't really know what happened. What caused it all to fall apart?" Kara's expression softened as she set the data pad aside. She looked out the window for a moment, lost in thought. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "It wasn't just one thing. It was betrayal, greed. My people were too powerful, and eventually, we turned on each other. In the end, my kind faded away. Most of us were wiped out. I was one of the few to survive." Lucas watched her closely. Her words carried such weight, and yet, she didn't seem angry or bitter. There was no anger in her voice, just a deep sadness. It was clear that her past wasn't something she liked to dwell on, but she had no choice. It was part of who she was. "I'm sorry," Lucas said quietly. "I didn't mean to bring up bad memories." Kara gave a small, knowing smile. "It's not your fault. I've carried these memories with me for so long that they don't hurt as much anymore." She paused, then looked at him with those deep, purple eyes. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm the last one. The last of my kind." Lucas felt a lump form in his throat. He didn't know what to say. It was hard for him to imagine losing everything. Losing an entire people, an entire history, And yet, that's what Kara had lived through. Her people's glory was gone, and she was left to wander the galaxy, alone. "You're not alone," he said after a long silence. He didn't know why those words came out. He wasn't sure if he was just trying to comfort her or if it was something deeper. But as soon as he said it, he knew it was true. She wasn't alone. Not anymore. Kara turned to him, her gaze softening. "Thank you, Lucas," she said quietly. "You've been kind to me, even though you didn't have to." Lucas looked down at his hands, suddenly feeling embarrassed. "I'm just doing what seems right. I don't want you to feel like a burden or anything. But I can't just ignore someone who's in trouble." Kara nodded. "I never expected to find kindness in the middle of space, but you've shown me something I didn't think still existed." The room grew silent again, but this time the silence felt different. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful. There was an understanding between them now, something that hadn't been there at the beginning. They were no longer just two strangers from different worlds. They were two people sharing a moment, learning to trust each other. As the days continued, Lucas found that he enjoyed these quiet moments with Kara. They would share simple meals, talk about their day, or just sit in silence. He had come to appreciate her company in ways he hadn't expected. She wasn't like anyone he'd ever met. She was graceful, intelligent, and strong, despite the weight of her past, and there was something undeniably attractive about her calm, unassuming nature. One evening, as they sat together, Lucas asked a question that had been on his mind for days. "Kara, if you could go back, would you? I mean, if you could somehow bring your people back, would you do it?" Kara didn't answer immediately. She looked out the window again, her face thoughtful. "I don't know. Sometimes I think that maybe my people's time has passed. The galaxy has changed. It's different now. I'm not sure if we could ever go back to what we were." Lucas nodded slowly. "That makes sense." Kara turned to him, her gaze intense but kind. "But if I could help rebuild, if there was a way for my people to find peace again, I would try. I owe them that." There was a long pause. Lucas didn't know what to say to that. He wasn't sure what rebuilding a galaxy meant. He didn't know if it was even possible. But what he did know was that Kara was stronger than anyone he had met before. She wasn't defined by her past. She was determined to make a future. And that was something Lucas admired. The days aboard the ship felt like they had started to blend together for Lucas. He and Kara had settled into a strange but peaceful routine. They would work separately during the day, with Kara quietly reading through the data pads in Lucas's room, while he flew the ship and carried out his duties as the pilot. At night, they would share a meal, talk about their days, and slowly get to know each other better. However, Lucas began to notice small things that didn't quite add up. Kara was careful with her words, always avoiding specific details when it came to her past. She would speak in vague terms about her people, but never directly about what had happened to them. Sometimes, she would stare out the window for long periods of time, as if lost in thought, and Lucas couldn't help but wonder what was going on behind those deep, purple eyes of hers. It was during one of those quiet evenings that Lucas caught something strange. He had just returned from a routine check of the ship's systems, only to find Kara sitting by the desk, her face lit by the faint glow of the data pad. He didn't think much of it at first, but then he noticed the look on her face, focused, serious, as if she were reading something important. He stepped closer, the sound of his footsteps breaking the silence. Kara quickly closed the data pad, her eyes flicking to him, as if she had been caught doing something she shouldn't. Lucas raised an eyebrow. "What were you reading?" Kara hesitated, her lips pressing together in a tight line. "Nothing," she said quickly. "Just some old records from my people." Lucas didn't buy it. He had seen that look before, the kind that said she was hiding something. He didn't want to press her right then, but the suspicion lingered in his mind. There was more to Kara than she was letting on. Later that night, Lucas couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned in his bed, his thoughts racing. Something didn't feel right. Kara had been so careful with her words, always avoiding anything that might reveal too much. She was running from something, and Lucas had a sinking feeling that whatever it wasn't just the fall of her people. There was more to her story than she had shared. He sat up, the ship's dim lights casting shadows on the walls. He had to know what she was hiding. His curiosity got the better of him. Without thinking, he got out of bed and quietly crossed the room to where Kara sat. Reading once again. Kara, he said, his voice low. What are you not telling me? She didn't look up at first. Then, with a sigh, she set the data pad down and met his gaze. There was no anger in her eyes, only sadness and something else, something that told Lucas that he wasn't going to like what she was about to say. Lucas, I didn't want you to know about this. She began, her voice soft, but I owe you the truth. I can't keep hiding from it. Lucas sat down across from her, his heart racing. What is it? Kara took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts before speaking. The truth is, I'm not just a survivor of my people's fall. I'm the last of my line, the last of the royal family. And there are those who will do anything to see me captured or destroyed. Lucas stared at her, his mind trying to process the weight of her words. Captured. Why? What's so important about you? Kara's eyes darkened as she looked at him, a quiet fear in her gaze. It's not just me they want. It's what I carry with me, my bloodline. My people, before they fell, had technology unlike anything you've ever seen. It's dangerous, Lucas, in the wrong hands. It could destroy everything. The room was quiet for a moment as the weight of her confession settled between them. Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. Kara wasn't just some lost soul from a fallen empire. She was part of something much bigger and much more dangerous than he had ever realized. And what's this technology? What exactly is it? He asked, his voice tense. I can't tell you everything, she replied. But it's something that could change the course of the galaxy. The power to control entire fleets. To reshape worlds. My people built it, and I was meant to protect it. But after the fall, it's been hidden. And there are those out there who still want to use it. Lucas sat back, trying to absorb the enormity of what Kara was saying. And you think someone on this ship? Kara nodded slowly. I don't know who, but I've felt the eyes. On me. Someone knows who I am, and they're waiting for the right moment to strike. I've kept the secret for as long as I could, but now I fear it's too late. I never meant to drag you into this, Lucas, but the danger is real, and it's only a matter of time before they come for me. Lucas looked at her, his mind racing. He had been drawn into something far bigger than he had ever imagined, a fugitive alien princess, carrying the key to unimaginable power. What kind of mess had he gotten himself into? You're not alone, he said after a long pause. I won't let them take you. Kara's eyes softened, and for the first time, she smiled a real smile, full of gratitude. Thank you, Lucas. But this isn't just about me. The fate of more than just my people is at stake. I can't let it fall into the wrong hands. Lucas took a deep breath, his mind already racing. He didn't know what he could do, but he wasn't about to let Kara face this alone. Whatever this hidden threat was, they would deal with it together. Then let's make sure it doesn't. He said quietly, determination in his voice. We'll figure this out. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was filled with understanding. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The days after Kara's confession felt different. Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Kara's secret, her true identity, hung over them like a shadow. But even more than that, the tension in the air grew thicker. It was clear that Kara was right. They were being watched. There were moments when she would glance nervously over her shoulder, her gaze flickering to the windows, as if expecting someone or something to appear. Lucas couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. The crew aboard the ship had always been friendly, professional, but now he wasn't so sure. He noticed the way some of them looked at Kara, the whispers when they thought no one was listening, and when they spoke of her, it was always in hushed tones. The mystery of who she really was had become a quiet but very real danger. It was late one night, just after Lucas had finished his shift, when things took a turn for the worse. He had been in the cockpit, running through the usual post-flight checks, when the ship's alarm system blared to life. The sudden noise made him jump out of his seat. His heart raced as he quickly hit the communication button, his mind racing. "What's going on?" Lucas asked, his voice tense. The voice on the other end was calm, but there was a note of urgency in it. "Captain, we've detected a ship approaching. Fast, it's not on the approved list of vessels, and it's not responding to our hails." A chill ran down Lucas's spine. He knew this wasn't a coincidence. They weren't just being watched. Someone was coming for them and they weren't here to make friends. "Is it armed?" Lucas asked, his fingers flying over the controls. "Yes," heavily. The voice on the other end replied, "We're activating shields, but they're still too far away to get a full lock on them." Lucas clenched his fists. He knew they didn't have much time. He quickly made his way to the main quarter where Kara was waiting. Sitting in the small common area of the ship, she looked up when he entered, her face pale. Her hands clenched tightly in her lap. "I know," she said softly, her voice low. "They found us." Lucas stared at her, his stomach sinking. "Who?" "The ones who want me gone." Kara replied, standing up. "They're not here to talk. They'll try to capture me or worse. We need to act fast." She wasn't just afraid, she was prepared. There was a look in her eyes that Lucas had never seen before. It was the look of someone who had lived through wars and betrayals. Someone who had learned to survive in a universe that was full of danger and deceit. And now, it seemed, that survival instinct was kicking in once again. "Let's get to the control room," Lucas said, his voice firm. "We'll figure this out." The two of them rushed to the cockpit, where the rest of the crew was already at their stations, trying to prepare the ship for the incoming threat. Lucas quickly sat down at his console, pulling up the ship's defensive systems and scanning the approaching ship. The readings were not good. The enemy ship was massive, heavily armed, and it was closing in fast. "Can we outrun them?" Lucas asked, his mind working quickly. "No chance," the officer at the controls replied. "Their ship is faster, and they're already locking onto us. We can't escape." Kara stood by the window, looking out at the dark expanse of space. She didn't say anything for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to Lucas. "They know I'm here. They've known for a while. The only way we're going to survive this is if we take the fight to them." Lucas looked at her, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" "I have a way to disable their ship," she said, her voice low but confident. "But it's risky. I need to get to the engine room and access their systems. If I do that, I can stop them. But it will only work if we move fast. We don't have much time before they lock onto us completely." Lucas hesitated for a moment. The thought of facing off against an enemy ship in a direct battle wasn't something he had ever signed up for. But the choice was clear. If they didn't act, they would be taken, and Kara would be captured or worse. "We'll help you," Lucas said, his voice steady now. He looked around at the crew, who were all listening intently. "Everyone, prepare to back up Kara. We're not just going to sit here and wait to be boarded. We'll fight." There was no time for anything else. The crew moved quickly, preparing the ship's defenses. Lucas, Kara, and a few others made their way down to the engine room, the air tense with anticipation. The crew knew what was at stake. If Kara's plan worked, they might stand a chance, but if it didn't, when they reached the engine room, Kara moved quickly to a small terminal hidden behind some of the ship's equipment. Her fingers flew over the controls as Lucas kept watch, his senses on high alert. The enemy ship was getting closer, and he knew they didn't have much time. "There's an override system in their ship's navigation," Kara explained. "If I can tap into it, I can disable their weapons. It's a long shot, but it's the only shot we have." Just as she spoke, the ship shook violently, throwing everyone off balance. The enemy had fired their first shot. The battle had begun. "We need to hurry," Lucas shouted, feeling the ship tremble again as the enemy ship fired again. Kara didn't hesitate. Her hands moved quickly, her face a mask of concentration. For a moment, Lucas thought he saw the faintest hint of fear in her eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it came. She wasn't just a princess. She was a survivor, and she was determined to protect the future of her people. "Almost there," Kara muttered, her eyes fixed on the terminal. "Just a little longer." Then, with a final press of a button, The room went quiet. Kara looked up, her face breaking into a small but relieved smile. "It's done," she said, her voice calm. "Despite the chaos, they won't be able to fire on us anymore." The ship's lights flickered briefly, and the sound of the enemy ship's weapons firing stopped. Lucas could hardly believe it. "We're safe," he said, his voice barely a whisper. But Kara's expression remained serious, for now. "But we're not out of danger yet." The calm that followed the battle didn't last long. Although they had successfully disabled the enemy ship's weapons, the tension in the air remained thick. The ship's alarms had stopped, and the crew was moving in a controlled, organized manner. But Lucas could feel the quiet unease that lingered even after the immediate danger had passed. Kara stood in the cockpit, staring out at the stars, her posture tense. She hadn't said a word since the battle ended, but Lucas could see that her mind was still racing, her thoughts far from the present moment. "Kara?" Lucas asked gently, walking up behind her. "Are you okay?" She didn't turn around. At first, the silence between them stretched longer than he expected. Then, slowly, she spoke, her voice low. "I've been running for so long," she said quietly. "I didn't think it would come to this. I thought I could stay hidden forever." Lucas looked at her, his heart heavy with sympathy. He knew her past was a difficult subject. Kara had spent so many years in hiding, and now it seemed the time had come to face it. "You've been carrying this burden alone," he said softly, "and I can't imagine how hard it must be." Kara finally turned to face him, her purple eyes reflecting a deep sadness. "I never wanted to drag anyone else into it, but the truth is, Lucas, I can't keep running. My enemies will never stop hunting me. They'll do anything to get what I have, and if they succeed, the galaxy could fall into chaos." Lucas felt a chill run through him at her words. He hadn't fully understood the weight of her mission until now. It wasn't just her life that was at risk, it was the future of countless worlds. "I've been hiding for too long," Kara continued, her voice shaking slightly. "The people I trusted, they betrayed me. I thought I could rebuild, protect what was left of my people. But I was wrong. They found me again." Lucas stood still, listening carefully. It was clear that Kara had been carrying this pain for years, maybe even longer than he could understand. "I'm sorry," he said softly, his voice sincere. "You shouldn't have had to face this alone." Kara looked at him for a long moment. Then she finally spoke, her voice filled with quiet determination. "I can't do this without help. I need you, Lucas. I need you to help me stop them before it's too late." His heart pounded in his chest. The weight of her words settled over him like a storm cloud. And yet, there was no turning back now. Kara had trusted him with her secret, and now he couldn't walk away, no matter how complicated it had become. She needed him, and he needed her. "I'm with you," Lucas said, his voice steady. "We'll face it together. Whatever happens next, we'll make sure they don't get what they want." Kara nodded, her eyes filling with gratitude. "Thank you. I don't know what I would do without you." Their moment of understanding was interrupted by a sudden alarm. The calm silence was shattered once more. Lucas rushed to the control panel, his heart sinking as the alert flashed across the screen. "Another ship is approaching," he muttered, his eyes scanning the readings. The signal was unmistakable. This wasn't a ship they could outrun. It was the same kind of vessel they had just fought off, and it was closing in fast. "We don't have time to waste," Lucas said, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to get to the bridge and prepare the crew. It's not over yet." Kara didn't hesitate. She moved quickly, her eyes narrowing with focus. "I know. They won't stop until they get what they want. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." The two of them rushed to the bridge, where the rest of the crew was already on high alert. They had done well in fending off the first attack, but now they were facing another enemy ship, one that might be even more prepared. "We can't wait for them to attack us again," Lucas said to the crew, his voice firm. "We need to be proactive. Get the weapons online and make sure the shields are at full strength." "Kara, can you access their systems again?" Kara nodded, her hands already moving over the controls. "I can, but we'll need to move fast. They're already trying to lock onto us." The crew worked quickly, each person focused on their tasks. The hum of the ship's engines and the whir of the communication systems were the only sounds that filled the room. Lucas stood at the front, watching the screens, knowing that time was running out. Kara, I don't know how much longer we can hold them off, Lucas said, his voice tight with worry. If we can't disable their weapons again, we might not make it. Kara glanced up at him, her expression serious but unwavering. I'll do everything I can, but we need to trust each other if we want to survive this. We have to stick together. Lucas met her gaze, his heart racing. He didn't have all the answers, and the situation seemed impossible. But he knew one thing for sure: he wasn't going to back down now. Not when it mattered so much. Together, he agreed, his voice full of resolve. Just as Kara began to access the enemy ship's systems again, the ship shook violently. The enemy vessel had opened fire, and the impact sent a jolt through the entire ship. Lucas gripped the console tightly, his heart pounding in his chest. This is it, he muttered, his voice grim. We have to stop them now. Kara worked quickly, her fingers flying over the terminal. Her eyes locked on the data as she tried to breach the enemy's systems once again. Lucas could see the strain in her face, the pressure of the situation taking its toll. And then, just as quickly as it had started, the enemy ship's weapons went silent. The screens flashed green, signaling that Kara had successfully disabled their weapons. We've done it, Kara said, her voice full of relief, but her eyes were still sharp. But we're not finished yet. We need to finish what we started. The enemy ship had been disabled, but Kara knew it was only a temporary victory. They had managed to stop their weapons, but there were still many more dangers lurking in the darkness of space. The crew worked quickly to assess the damage and make repairs. But the tension was far from over. Kara's past had caught up with her, and it wasn't something that would go away just because they had won one battle. Lucas stood by the control panel, watching the stars outside as the ship slowly drifted away from the disabled enemy vessel. The quiet hum of the ship's systems was the only sound in the room. Despite the brief moment of calm, Lucas could feel the weight of what lay ahead. Kara, he said, turning to face her. She was standing by the window, her eyes focused on the space ahead. Lost in thought. What now? We've stopped them. For now. But they'll be back, and we can't keep running forever. Kara turned slowly to him, her face serious. You're right. We can't keep running. This is only the beginning. The people who want me gone will stop at nothing to find me. But it's not just me anymore, Lucas. It's you too. You've become part of this. Lucas didn't flinch at her words. He had known this was coming. He had already made the decision when he first agreed to help her. But hearing it out loud felt different. It made everything feel more real, more dangerous. We need to end this. Kara continued. If we don't stop them now, they'll keep coming after us. And they won't stop until they get what they want. Lucas nodded, his mind racing. The enemy wasn't just after Kara. They were after the power she held within her. The ancient technology, the secret her people had guarded for centuries. It wasn't just her life that was at risk anymore. It was the balance of power in the galaxy. What's the plan? He asked. How do we finish this? Kara's eyes were dark with determination. We have to go to them. We need to find their leader and take the fight to them. If we can defeat them at their stronghold, we can end this for good. But there's a catch. Lucas raised an eyebrow. What's the catch? Kara took a deep breath. The stronghold is well protected. It's hidden on a planet that's been lost to time, a place no one's been able to find in centuries. But I know where it is. I can lead you there. But once we get there, it's going to be dangerous. We'll be outnumbered, and we'll have to fight our way through. Lucas didn't hesitate. He had already made up his mind. We're doing this, he said, his voice steady. We've already come this far. We're not backing down now. Kara looked at him, her eyes softening. Thank you, Lucas. I couldn't do this without you. I know it's risky, but we have to try. The two of them stood in silence for a moment, knowing that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy. But it had to be done. They had no other choice. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. The crew worked together, gathering everything they needed for the mission ahead. The ship was ready to move, and Kara had the coordinates for the lost planet. They were heading into the unknown, a place no one had set foot in for centuries. As the ship's engines powered up, Lucas sat in the cockpit, staring out at the stars. His hands gripped the controls, his mind focused on the mission. The danger ahead was real, but he wasn't afraid. He had made a promise to Kara, and he was going to keep it. Kara entered the cockpit, standing beside him. She was calm, but Lucas could see the worry in her eyes. "I know this isn't easy for you," she said quietly, "but we have no other choice. If we don't do this, they'll keep hunting us, and it won't stop until we're gone." Lucas turned to her, his face serious. "We're in this together, Kara. I'll protect you. I won't let them take you, and I won't let them destroy the galaxy either." She smiled, her eyes warm with gratitude. "I don't deserve your help, but I'm grateful for it." Lucas looked at the control panel, his hands steady on the controls. He knew that the mission ahead would change everything, but he was ready. They had come this far, and there was no turning back now. It was time to finish what they had started. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, the stars stretched out before them, disappearing into the vast expanse of the galaxy. They were headed into the heart of enemy territory, and the fight for their survival was about to begin. But Lucas wasn't afraid. He had Kara by his side, and together they would face whatever came next.